All right, KJ, what's up, man? I just wanted to ask you a question. So, what's the biggest single challenge that you done had from when you stopped playing Division I basketball and playing overseas? What's the biggest challenge or problem that you had?
I think the challenge I had would be, I would say, would be mainly the camaraderie, that you get from playing sports and doing things as a team. You miss those talk and that brotherhood and that cohesiveness of being with another person that, on the journey of finding one goal. I can say that can be a challenge, for a lot of athletes, in their life after basketball journey. But, overall, creating an identity outside of basketball, is a main thing that'll help, you transition into, your next, thing that you're exploring in life. And I just think that's the main challenge that, I can see overall, because it's going to be hard because you're used to doing things, you're used to being around certain guys, certain mindsets, and now you're going into the world where, everybody has a different perspective on how things should be done or teamwork or, a lot of people have not been challenged. So that's the main thing. But, individually, I know a lot of athletes suffer with just, finding out who they are outside of basketball because that has been their identity. That's what they've been known for as far as just putting the ball through the hoop. And, they say man is, it's like a tool. They only use them when, it's time to pick it up, and use the tool. So and as far as the basketball, that's why it's this, this quote out there, don't let basketball use you, but use basketball. And a lot of times we think that we're going to bounce forever. And then once the ball, inflates or the air is let out the ball, then you left scrambling and not using those resources when you was at the top. So I think that's the biggest challenge, with transitioning within the athlete, finding out, your identity and finding out who you are and, taking that void. You had that positive void, and sometimes you can see a lot of what athletes replace it with negative voids where they get into, hanging around the wrong crowd or, getting into, what they was used to doing, the vain glory because, a lot of people loving you for likes of what you did, but not really for who you are. So that's the main thing, really identifying with a crowd that really loves you for you and finding something that, just going to replace that team, concept and that cohesiveness, that brotherhood that all of us are looking for because a brother is born for adversity. So that's the main thing that I think a lot of people challenge with, and a lot of our superstars, while they fall into a life or crime and you were like, man, he did this and this and that, but he's going to where he's seeking love. You know what I'm saying? He's seeking validation or he's seeking, those things that he got from the court. So now he's transitioning to a life where now he's on his own now. He's always been that guy that people lean to and lean for, and everybody was, man, I need this, I need that, I need this, and you was there for him, and now this ball not here no more. You're not getting those frequent calls or the same women not hitting you up. So now it leads you to a state of depression, or you can be substance abuse. Or a lot of things can happen if you ain't got the right people, because it's safety in a multitude of counsel, and it's just really, that's the main challenge that I see and that you're gonna battle with, that you're gonna have to do a lot of things on your own. You know what I'm saying? And it takes a village to transition into that stage, and you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, you know what I'm saying? And knowing that, hey, when you lose motivation, just stay consistent with just whatever it is you're doing, and don't worry about, the glory and the likes. So that's the main thing and the main objective when you're looking at transitioning from sports, because it's that rush, it's that thrill, when you playing and you lacing up and you come together, we got to be here at this time, you holding everybody accountable, you know what I'm saying? Of course, the RON, the return on your investment if you win, the ups and downs, and, it's like life, that's why you say sports build character, but, that's the main thing, though, not to draw on the question, but that's the main thing that I see and that I had a challenge with.
Okay, I get you. So basically, it's finding that identity after sports that a lot of, you said that you had, and I can say the same thing when I was playing. That was the biggest thing when I got through playing, what's next, finding that identity, and not knowing that athletes really help all of the tangibles and help all the skill sets, soft skill sets and hard skill sets, to be very successful in life if they had a coach after sports.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that, I want to probably try to do later on, now is try to help these athletes fill that void. They still need a coach after they get through playing, because that's what they used to, somebody holding them accountable, but at the same time, try to help them find their identity. So I feel you. But with all those skill sets that you had with playing sports, I know you found your transition over to what you're doing now. Once you start playing professionally, you found that niche. And some people not fortunate like you. Like I can say, like right now, you got a brother, Chandler. He's trying to find his transitional point now. He's trying to find his identity on what he really wants to try to do. If he still want to play, because he can still play. But he's like, man, I want to do this. But one thing I know about, and I told Chandler, I said, man, I told him this before he went to the University of Arkansas. I said, man, we're going to make sure you be set up straight so that you won't have no issues to be pressured to jump into something that you don't need to jump into after you get through playing.
Right.
And so I thank God for that. But like I say, I just want to, hey, we just sit here talk. And KJ just came up with a great idea that we'll probably run with it. Nobody's above the law, not even us.
Right. Because we got to understand that the laws are set for a boundary to keep us safe, and they let us know when we out of bound. And so that's why we came up with the name. Of course, we got Law Gang.
Got Law Gang.
What I'm saying? And it's just, a gang is a collective group of people, you know what I'm saying, that's together. So we all know that's a collective now. So, nobody's above the law, you know what I'm saying? And I used to have this Instagram name coming up called Break the Law Son, you know what I'm saying? So, we just gonna come into you, with some topics, helping the younger generation, transition or navigate through situations. Y'all got any questions for Q&As or anything like that of that nature on a spiritual aspect, physical aspect, holistic aspect, feel free, once we post it to, put your comments, questions, whatever, hit the DMs, and it's just, that's what we're here for.
Right. And also, we're going to put the entrepreneur aspect. Right. Because a lot of you athletes could come over with what I call entrepreneur, meaning become an entrepreneur. You ain't got to go to these 9 to 5s. You ain't got to do what me and KJ did. I did it 20 years ago, and he did it 3 years ago. Right. Coming to this 9 to 5 world. But one thing that I saw, and I think he's saying the same thing, it gives you a lot of freedom. Mm-hmm. It gives you a lot of freedom. Mm-hmm. You get your weekends off, you get your holidays off, you get your springs and your falls. But still, one thing we need to stop doing, and I'm going to cut it off, we got to start changing. We got to stop exchanging our time for money. We got to stop there. Money is not time. One thing you got to understand that I can replace money, but I can't replace my time. So that's the point that I am in my life. Even as being an ex-athlete, coaching, I'm coming to the end of that athletic field, the industry. So now I got to transition to another world. And that world I'm transitioning to is, is being a coach after the coach. And then even, I do my insurance and, investment, trying to teach financial literacy. But we'll get back with y'all later.
Peace.